Context of white supremacy, justice, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of racism. Again, spending the entire month of July, almost said June, the entire month of July focused on information, resources around child sexual abuse in general. Extremely important topic, and I hope we have been sharing solid info for listeners out there. I know a lot of people have experienced some form of sexual trauma, and or people that you care about have experienced some form of sexual trauma. And I hope you can take some of this information and apply it if you deem fit. If you think the programs would benefit some of the folks that you know, care about, who might have experienced any sort of sexual molestation, share the programs. We should have more of these programs as the month continues, so they should have an opportunity to dial in and speak to some folks who have some expertise in this area, to ask questions and seek solutions to help them heal and recuperate. As we begin, just underscoring the massive problem that sexual abuse is, the trauma it is wreaking on Black people throughout this area of the world, and I suspect worldwide. I'm going to start with one of the anecdotes from our guest, her book. She has several different stories from some of the victims/survivors of sexual trauma, and thought it would be appropriate to begin with one of those stories to just emphasize the seriousness of this problem. This is Audrey's story. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just a little bit. I'm from Anthony, a small rural town in Florida. If horse farming or low-paying administrative jobs had been my speed, I might have stayed there my whole life. But I've always been a go-getter, so deciding to move wasn't hard. An outgoing, open-minded sister back in those days, I would strike up conversation with anyone, from a politician to a homeless person. Upbeat and just happy to be on the planet, my personality would serve me well, I figured, in a much bigger town. I left in 1988 at age 30 in search of a new professional, cultural, and educational experiences for my kids and me. I found what I was looking for in Atlanta. 2 years later, I found myself living in the Wheat Street Garden Apartments in Atlanta's historic Sweet Auburn neighborhood. You could see the famous Wheat Street Baptist Church from my ground floor apartment window, and I worked about a block away at the Early Learning Center of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. I've been there. A secretary and part-time teacher there, I was only a few weeks away from a new position as an intake counselor for a local welfare office when a nightmare would ravage and change my life forever. One warm spring night, I left my kitchen window cracked after smelling gas. While my daughter and niece slept in one bedroom and I slept with my 2 other children, a man crawled in that window, picked up a knife from my kitchen, and found his way to my bed. I tried to think my way out at first. I asked to go to the bathroom, where I figured I'd find something to throw in his eyes and disable him long enough to get to safety. But not only did my near hysterical son cling to my leg, my assailant followed me to the bathroom. After cursing us, threatening my son with the knife, and trying to rape me on the floor of my girl's bedroom, I at least got this monster back to my room. Fearing for the lives of my children and for my own, I did what I had to do to survive. I simultaneously had to calm my son and the criminal who invaded our home. Then I was raped while my baby girl slept and my 2-year-old son cried face down at my side. I wish I could say the difficult journey back to wholeness started right away. Even though I have now reached a deep peace of mind and spirit, my ordeal didn't end with the rapist leaving my home. I called the police immediately, along with an officer. 3 emergency medical technicians showed up. I described the assailant by comparing his complexion and height to one of the technicians, the only black person who'd come. He at once put his hands up and said, "Don't look at me, it wasn't me," provoking rousing laughter from his colleagues. I was shocked. In an instant, the most horrendous trauma of my life had been transformed into the butt of a joke. It wouldn't be the last insensitivity I'd suffer. The only family I ever had in Atlanta were my children, who at the time ranged from 1 to 9 years old. The next morning, I tried my best to carry on with my routine, somehow getting children to school and daycare and getting myself to work. But I wasn't fooling anyone but myself. Coworkers kept asking what was wrong. It took a few hours before I finally broke down and told what had happened. Fortunately, I worked with some compassionate people, my first adopted family. Between trying to figure out what happened and between trying to forget what happened and assuming no authorities would care about the rape of a black woman, especially one that lived in a low-income neighborhood, I hadn't planned on reporting my assault, but my coworkers insisted. One accompanied me to Grady Memorial Hospital's Rape Crisis Center, where a sympathetic woman doctor examined me. I had demanded a female doctor. A staff person had told me that I would have to see whomever was on duty, even if it was a man. I said, "I've just been raped by a man. Do you expect me to now let a man examine me?" It was by the grace of God that a woman doctor was on duty. If not, I would not have gone through with the exam. Then my coworker went with me to the police station. Now that was a fiasco. It was a Friday around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Someone informed a black male detective that he needed to take my report. Right in front of me, he responded, "Oh man, why I gotta do this one? I'm ready to go home. It's the weekend." He picked the wrong sister to mess with that day. I'm going to sanitize the language a little bit. You MFer, let me tell you what I just went through. I literally had to consent to a rape so this guy would not kill my son or kill me or my other children, and all you can think about is partying? I just lost half my soul this morning. After I cursed him out good, I turned to storm out of the station. I ranted and raved to my coworker who'd been waiting, explaining what the detective had said. That's what black women are worth to society. This is the kind of shit I'm talking about, I fumed. Let's just drop it and go. I don't know what she said to that detective, but he came out about 10 minutes later and apologized. Still, as far as I was concerned, the damage was already done. He ended up leaving anyway, and another detective took my statement. But before leaving, he had the nerve to tell me he would come to my apartment Monday morning to get more details. What kind of fool do you think I am? Do you honestly think that I'm going to stay in this apartment over the weekend, knowing that this guy is still walking around out there? I said in disgust. The original detective was still assigned to my case, and we never got along. I didn't trust him to investigate my assault adequately, so I didn't leave it up to him. I started asking people around the neighborhood if they knew of anyone who fit the rapist's description. It didn't take very long to find someone who did. A friend who used to babysit my children not only knew whom I was describing by name, she'd had him in her house before visiting her boyfriend. She also told me he had just gotten out of jail for killing his girlfriend, who had 3 kids. As a matter of fact, she said, I resembled that girlfriend. Of course, I immediately told the detective what I'd heard, including that my assailant was probably living in a high-rise senior citizen's home. I warned him not to just bust up in there and ask everybody about this guy, because since it was against the regulations of the building, no one would admit to putting him up. But he goes down there and asks straight out. Needless to say, the man who raped me was never caught. Detective work aside, I tried to go on with my life and take care of my family as best I could. I decided to try to handle everything alone. I didn't get counseling back then, although it was offered to me at a hospital's rape crisis center. Truthfully, even though we lived only a few blocks away from Grady Memorial Hospital, I was too scared to go. The counseling sessions would have me coming home after dark, and I couldn't handle that. One of the lasting effects of being assaulted for me is a continuing fear of being out at night, especially alone. It's a little ironic since I was raped in my home, but I was attacked at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I guess I haven't gotten over my dread of darkness. In those early years after the rape, going out during the day could be an ordeal too. I would be looking over my shoulder, wondering if this person was still somewhere, looking and peeking and hiding. I will stop there. That passage in the phenomenal book, I Will Survive, The African American Guide to Healing from Sexual Assault and Abuse. Outstanding text. I cannot heap enough praise on it. Hopefully that'll come through in the broadcast. You can visit the website if you would like more information. It is LoriRobinson.com. It's in the chat room, LORI Robinson.com. The author of this text and our guest for the program is a journalist, public speaker, rape survivor, and has done an extraordinary job of compiling fantastic information, research on just a lot of things that would help Black people heal from sexual trauma. She's also spent time teaching in Ecuador and reporting on African people living in Latin America. Real pleasure to have her on the program to get more information. Joining us live this evening on the Cows, our guest, Lori Robinson. Miss Robinson, are you with us?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing some of your time. As I said, real pleasure to have you on the program. Really appreciate the opportunity to offer more information to our guests. Before we get started, is it just anything you think would be helpful for our listeners to know about you as we proceed?
About me? I guess just that I feel that I've been really blessed in my own healing process, and I was very proactive about seeking out support. And so not that everyone heals in the same way, not that therapy is the best thing for everyone, but in my case, having different kinds of Black women therapists made a huge difference, and I just don't think I would have healed to the point of being able to write this book or get through the writing of the book if I had not sought out some professional help. So I do advise that people do that, just because in my experience it was really key to my own healing process.
Right on. That you touch on that in the book as well. I think we'll pick that up as we roll. Since the last guest that we had on the program talking about this, writing a book on racism and Black people's experience with sexual molestation was actually a white person. Verifying for our listeners, you are a Black female, is that correct?
I am a Black woman.
Right on. This program, context of white supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, and I use the same definition for both terms. The definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that's an accurate definition?
I do think so. I kind of think it's, in my personal opinion, like simplified, because I just think there are so many kinds of oppression that are interrelated and support various types of oppression, really do help other types of oppression be perpetuated. So I guess I do think that white supremacy exists and is a global problem for sure. But I just think to address white supremacy and the oppression of black people, we have to address just all forms of oppression, the oppression of women, the oppression of people by sexual orientation, whatever the case. Because if we can if there's an excuse, if we allow it to be acceptable to oppress and abuse any group of people because of any characteristic, be it race, gender, whatever, then someone will always be able to find it acceptable, excusable to oppress, someone else. So my perspective is that we have to make all forms of oppression unacceptable.
Replace white supremacy with justice. No one being mistreated. People getting the help that need the most help. Right on. I guess this is not even really tangent from your book, because I got this from reading material preparing for the program. Our guest, Miss Robinson, she also prolific author, journalist. She published an essay in 2007, August 19th, 2007, Pressure Builds to End Abuse of Black Women. It's in the Chicago Tribune. It's online. I'll put it in the chat room. But if you don't have access to the chat room, it's titled Pressure Builds to End Abuse of Black Women. And I was reading the report, and by the time I got to the end, I was saying, wow, I cannot believe all of the hubbub and people spending so much time complaining about Jerry Sandusky and saying, oh my God, this guy is a monster and he deserved to go to jail, and maybe even Paterno and some of the other people who enabled him to continue to rape children. I totally forgot about R. Kelly. And I was saying, wow, if I was a racist, if I heard any black people jumping up and down and talking wild about Jerry Sandusky, I might have to stop in my tracks and say, now, wait a minute now. You didn't do all this when R. Kelly got caught on video, no less. You don't even have video of Jerry Sandusky molesting any of these young boys. You got video of R. Kelly doing the same thing, raping a child, and you all didn't jump, or a significant number of black people did not jump up and down and protest and call for him to go to jail, and any of his enablers. There was a very different response from black people to R. Kelly. And even when he was at Whitney Houston's funeral, there wasn't a whole lot of outrage and black people saying, my God, you got a child rapist up there. You got a pedophile up there at the funeral. They didn't even let her husband, former husband, Bobby Brown, speak, but you let R. Kelly, known child pedophile, speak at the funeral. Can you kind of touch on our response to R. Kelly and how that kind of enables and supports the abuse of black females?
I mean, first I would say that there was an outcry, but it was just who did the media pay attention to? So the media paid attention to the people who, the significant number of black people who supported R. Kelly. And we can look at any case of any black male celebrity who's been accused of victimizing someone sexually. Mike Tyson, Kobe Bryant. Whether the victim is black or not, because of very real racism and white supremacy, black people, in my opinion, have a knee-jerk reaction, and our instinct, our immediate reaction is when we hear these accusations, we automatically want to assume that it's white people trying to destroy another black man. So I would argue that, it's just very disappointing for me that as a community, as black people in the United States in particular, because that's the group I know best, but I do think you're right that it's a global phenomenon, that we haven't come to a level of, I guess, maturity in a way to be able to distinguish between cases of sexism, cases of just plain flat-out racism. We're not ready to accept that, yes, there are black people among us who victimize us. So I'm just still, Al Sharpton has jumped to the defense, for example, of black people who have sexually victimized black people, but when the young woman, I'm blanking on her name now, decades ago,
Tawana Brawley,
was raped by white men, he was very vocally in support of her. So clearly it's just very disappointing for me that black people, there are definitely exceptions, there are definitely black men and women who are very strong and vocal and clear about the need to call out, hold accountable black people who sexually victimize anyone, and in particularly sexually victimize people within their own community. But there are just way too many of us who are more concerned with getting their groove on to the R. Kelly song than they are about the well-being, or just sacrificing, just discounting the well-being of our children and our youth and, in other cases, our adults. So just very disappointing.
I was in the Atlanta area when the whole R. Kelly scandal became public, and I remember a lot of black people, and I think you're correct. I think there were some, I tried to catch myself, I think there were a significant number of black people who were speaking out, who were pretty vocal and saying, this is totally incorrect behavior, and I don't care how great the music is or what have you, this is totally incorrect, and we cannot support R. Kelly for this misbehavior. But I also saw a lot of black people, and I was working at a club at the time, and they had no problem playing his music, and I don't care what he did, it's great music, and yay R. Kelly. And that is extremely disappointing, because I just saw way too many I still see way too many black people who just do not recognize that as just reprehensible behavior that just cannot be supported any way, shape, or form.
I agree.
Wow. All right. That, again, the article, it's you can check it out. I put it in the chat room, and you can check it on your own. Pressure builds to end abuse of black women. In fact, I guess before I even get to the book, R. Kelly has got a lot of media attention. He's won major awards since then, been nominated for Grammys and all kinds of stuff. I would even say that further supports black females being degraded, children being molested, degraded, just any sort of sexual deviance, as long as it's directed at black people, when he doesn't really have to do any jail time, there are no major consequences, and he continues to thrive as an artist. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I do think that one aspect of this that, that we have to be honest about and acknowledge is class division. If he were poor, or if we didn't know, if he wasn't, a celebrity, would he, if he couldn't afford the best lawyers in the country, what would be his fate? He would get twice the jail time of a white man for the same crime. But we have black people who are multimillionaires, and when again, we just, as a community, have not come to the point where we're ready to hold our perpetrators within our own community accountable, even when they are harming our own people.
Absolutely.
That's where we are.
Absolutely. I would, given my view, we're in a system of white supremacy. White people, racist man, racist woman, they are always most to blame, as they have the most power. I would say that that R. Kelly, his conduct, and then what's happened subsequently, I think that very much supports racism, white supremacy. I could see where racists in the entertainment industry would want to promote R. Kelly, because this will further promote any sort of sexual deviance, black females being raped, black female children being molested. Hey, yeah, we can do that and encourage it. We don't look at this as deviant behavior. We don't look at this as something that people should be totally outraged about. We can promote it. Hey, this guy, long as he's messing over black females, who cares? We want to see more of that. Encourage it. Yeah, let's give him more record deals. Let's give him more TV time. I could totally see how racists would want to promote and encourage someone who's doing that sort of thing, because it just further just leaves the black community, or black people in general, in tatters. If you support and encourage that sort of misconduct. Right on. Check out the piece, folks, and I'll give out the number before we get to the book. 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. With all the programs that we're doing around issues of sexual trauma, I definitely want to encourage folks to dial in. If you have questions, comments, I want to try to make sure we get as many callers as we can for the program. So press *6. I will not wait till the last 30 minutes. I'll try and get hands as soon as they pop up. People have questions you want to ask. We have someone who has a lot of expertise in this field. So hands up, take advantage, ask questions while she's here. Your book, I Will Survive, The African American Guide to Healing from Sexual Assault and Abuse. What was the purpose of you putting this book together?
Well, I was raped when I was 25, and I was blessed to be working at a magazine that unfortunately no longer exists. It was called Emerge, and it was an African American national news magazine. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up writing a feature story about my assault and the alleged assault of a student at Spelman College, which happens to be where I went to college. So, about 5 years after I graduated, I'm working at this magazine. There's a case of 4 Morehouse students accused of raping a Spelman student. And so I wrote this feature story about my assault, and again this case, and we just got such a phenomenal response, and I just was aware that, that I was not able to find any resources that were culturally relevant, culturally specific for African Americans at that time around sexual assault. And so I had been so blessed in terms of being really supported by family and friends, by, coworkers, by my boss. I just felt that, I want to use my experience and my skills. I'm trained as a journalist. I've had this experience. I'm in the process of an amazing healing journey, and nothing exists for Black people that need this kind of support. So I decided I think I'll create one. So I wanted it to be a self-help book for survivors and for their loved ones to help them in their healing process, but I also wanted it to be a guide to anti-rape social change. So that's why a portion of the book deals with things that people have done and can do in your own communities to raise awareness, to educate, and to prevent sexual violence from happening.
We're going to get to some of the suggestions as we roll. Things people can do to prevent, things people can do to heal from. I guess one of the things, this is in the introduction, which I thought was pretty profound, and it relates to the anecdote that we started the program with, where the Black female in Atlanta was unfortunately raped in front of her child. The assailant had been in prison, and you talk about at the very beginning of the book how one of the areas that doesn't really get addressed as seriously, the amount of rape that is rampant in the prison system. And you were
go ahead.
I was just going to make the point and get your thoughts that you were saying. I just thought this was really profound, that amount of rape that's allowed in the prison system might be responsible for creating people who then, once they're out, and go on to just rape all kinds of people once they're out.
It's just one of many major flaws in our society. The prison industrial complex, is growing, and there's less and less rehabilitation that's taking place in prisons, and not. It's our society treats people who are put in prison as throwaway people. So, it's like punishment is enough, but it's not enough if you want to have a healthy society. I guess it's enough if you are just vindictive and want to see people suffer. But if you want to have a healthy society and you realize the people that go to prison are going to come out someday, personally, I would like for those people to come out as healthy and self-aware and healed as possible, so that they will not return to, if they committed crimes in the first place, so that they will not return to criminal behavior, activity, whatever type it was. So, yeah, it's very. It's just hard for me to even process that people just don't care that, like, if they're in prison, it doesn't matter what happens to them. Like, they're not human. Like, I just find that so disturbing. But my sense of society in general is we lock them away, throw away the key, and what happens to them in prison doesn't matter. It does matter because again, they get out. But it also matters because if you want to have a humane society, you have to treat everyone with humanity, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I would say again, system of racism, white supremacy, they have a major agenda for locking up as many black people as possible. I would say, hey, if I'm a racist, white supremacist, if I can get these black males and black females, if I can get them in prison and further dehumanize them and get them to dehumanize other people and get them to feel comfortable doing that, get them to feel comfortable feeling as though they're showing some sort of power, raping other males, and then they get out and they're just going to continue that behavior as long as it's directed at black people, that is a win for me and the racist team. I can easily see how that would make sense and how that would be encouraged. And there's a white male who wrote a book who was saying he felt white people were doing this on purpose. It's on my blog, Male Rape, and he was studying prison population. This is in the 70s, and he was saying that he thought white people were doing this on purpose because it helped them maintain control over prisons. I'll give the whole title and all that later on, but focusing on Miss Robinson's work right now. You start off at the very beginning of the book and just talking about once the trauma has occurred, healing process, things you can do right then and things that you should do right then. And the major step, reporting the crime immediately. And you talk about some of the obstacles that prevent whether it's children or adults from reporting, and just can you kind of emphasize why that is so important, and even whatever excuses or reasons, and they might be legitimate, that you might have for not wanting to report, that should not keep you from telling someone? Sure.
It's important to, first of all, go to an emergency room, preferably you can call a rape crisis center. There's a national rape crisis hotline which we can give, but call a rape crisis center. They're across the country, and often they are able to send someone to accompany you to an emergency room. More and more there exist what they call sane nurses, or they have different names in different places, but sexual assault nurses who are trained in particular to do post-sexual assault exams. And so they're trained to be more compassionate, but they're also trained to collect evidence. So here are the two main reasons why it's really important to go get examined after an assault. One is because you might have injuries, internal injuries that you're not aware of. And so it's important just in terms of taking care of yourself. Secondly, most often, rape is a crime where there are no witnesses. And so if it's stranger rape, then if the assailant is caught, the defense will most likely be something terrible happened to this poor person, but this is a case of mistaken identity. If it is, if someone is assaulted by someone they know, then it will be one person's word against another person's word. The assailant's going to lie and deny it, and the survivor is going to tell the truth. So in many cases, there's not other evidence, physical evidence, like if there's a homicide, obviously there's a dead body. But in the case of sexual assault, the way that it was explained to me by people who do that work is that the survivor's body is the crime scene, and so evidence may be on his or her clothes. DNA evidence may be on his or her skin. inside his or her body, and so that's why it might be it could be not only semen but hair, or if someone is scratched, or blood, or so. In some cases, the only evidence that you will have if you make it to trial will be the evidence that was captured during the exam. And it's best if you go immediately after an assault, but definitely within 72 hours, because by the time 72 hours has passed, any of that evidence that might have been physically on your body is going to be gone. So those are the two most important reasons. So obviously many people, especially women of color, are reluctant to report assaults because, as happened to Audrey, they're concerned that they won't be treated well. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're concerned they won't be believed. Even if they're believed, maybe they'll be concerned that no one's going to care. I'll be treated disrespectfully. And I interviewed a black male prosecutor who was a survivor himself, who said, I have to be honest. In some places, in some cases, that is going to be the reality. But I would still encourage people to take the risk, to report, to, in a way, stand up for yourself and take that step toward holding the perpetrator accountable. It's definitely much more difficult if you know the assailant, because, and this is not just within the black community, certainly nationwide, any community. If you know the assailant, if it was maybe someone you went on a date with, or if it's maybe someone who's prominent in the community, like a pastor, of course that people's reaction is going to be to not believe the survivor and to try to destroy the survivor's character. So I totally understand why a woman or a man would make the choice to not report. I certainly don't want to give the impression that I'm criticizing people who make a different choice, because ultimately you have to do what's best for you. You have to survive however you can survive, and that means different things for different people in different situations. But I do think that if it is within you to report and to get the exam and to stand up for yourself and take care of yourself in that way, I do encourage that if you feel that is what's best for you.
A couple of the important points that you have in this first chapter in the book, that number one, if you have concerns about cost and you're thinking, I don't want to go to the hospital, I don't want to go get any sort of medical exams, I can't pay for it, that shouldn't be an issue, that many areas they have funds set aside for someone if they are the victim of some sort of sexual assault, where other funds can cover that. That shouldn't deter you from getting a medical exam. If you decide that or if you're not sure, if you actually want to press charges, that shouldn't deter you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, because if you decide later down the line, weeks, months later, whenever, you know what, I do want to press charges, and you didn't have that exam, you may have absolutely zero evidence. So just in case if you're not sure, you don't know what you're going to do in terms of the legal system, if there's any possibility that you might want to press charges, get that exam for sure. And of course, I didn't mention this, but the potential for sexually transmitted diseases. you want to get examined so that you can make sure that you are healthy and taken care of in terms of that possibility as well.
Real important. When I was reading the book, I was even thinking, if you should, heaven forbid, but if you should find yourself being attacked in any sort of way sexually, try to scratch the person, get away, do everything you can to distance yourself, but really try to scratch that person hard, so that you can get some sort of DNA evidence to try to locate that person. Hopefully you'll never be in that position, but I was thinking that the whole time, like, man, scratch that person as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it really depends on the circumstances. You know, it's if you are in that kind of situation, you may be so paralyzed with fear that even if there's no weapon, that this could be happening to you. You don't know what this person could kill me. So I could totally understand that. In my case, there was a weapon. A gun was pointed at my head before I was raped. But in the vast majority, it's only about 10% of cases of rape in which there's a weapon. But even still, it's such a horrific, indescribably horrific trauma, and I can easily see that even with no weapon present, you would be in such shock that, you know, you may not be too scared to think of that, or you just may not be able to think. I do encourage also that people get into martial arts or take self-defense classes and those kinds of things. You know, that definitely just gives you a sense of empowerment and makes it more likely that, you know, God forbid you are and someone is ever attacked, that you will have the tools and the presence of mind to make the best, safest decisions and choices about how to protect yourself if possible. But yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying about trying to scratch the person, but that's just in the midst of this kind of violence. You know, we can't think that. It's just difficult for me to think of doing that because you're already being violated and victimized, and you're so afraid that how could you not think that your life is in danger? And so, well, anyway, I'm rambling now, but I hear what you're saying about evidence, but I guess I would emphasize for anyone, just do what you think is best for you, because every circumstance is so different.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Some of the people in the chat room, they were even commenting that most of the time, unfortunately, for the victim, the perpetrator isn't a stranger that they've never seen before. Most of the time, it's somebody they know. I know in the...
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yes, the vast majority of cases of sexual assault are committed by someone that the victim knows and that they have no reason to distrust. So the whole, I would have to say that my case of assault is the rare case of strangers with a weapon, and I think that honestly is why I received so much support from family and friends, and because that it was people's stereotypical idea of what rape is. But you know, if you know the assailant, and again, this is not just within the Black community. It's so easy to victim blame. That's where people's minds go, women included, because we want to believe that if we just wear the right thing, or if we don't drink, or we don't go out too late, or we're good girls, we're not, whatever that means, that it can't happen to us, as if just placing the burden of preventing rape on potential victims. There's risk reduction and there's prevention. We can reduce our risk, and I do think that everyone should do that, make the safest choices possible. When you go out with your friends or whatever, make sure if someone's drinking, you watch that drink so no one's slipping some drug in. Well, all those things that you learn about just making safe choices, we can reduce our risk. But preventing rape means stopping people from raping in the first place, and that's when we're talking about anti-rape social change. And so that's I would say that there's definitely a movement working toward that. But again, the media, the mass media in this country, whoever's at the helm, whether we're talking about Black people at BET or white studio heads at major motion picture companies, whatever, we're still putting out images and media and the news media as well. Just people don't have a clue about how to report about sexual violence, and so we're just still not at the point as a society where we are holding holding perpetrators accountable, where we're not at the point where we are past victim blaming, and so we just have a lot of work to do as a society and within the Black community as well.
Absolutely. I wanted to make sure I get as much info as I can from the book, but before I move from the first kind of beginnings of the book, one of the other important points I felt, you said for the victim, even if they decide or if they're not sure whether or not they want to press charges and go to the police enforcement officers, to at least tell someone. If it's a trusted friend, trusted family member, someone, report, tell them what happened. And even if you wait, if you decide that you're not going to go to the police at first, or if you're unsure, that it is better to go late and report than to not report at all, correct?
Yes, I would agree. Yes. That way there's, it's unfortunate that we have to say this, but it'll be more likely, I think, that people will be believed if they said something to someone. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it.
Family member, friend, someone, parent, someone that you trust, just try to tell them, and they can even be one of the mediaries. I thought that was great advice as well in the book. When you tell that other person, they can kind of help you along in the process, whether it's going to talk to healthcare officials or enforcement officers. If you tell someone else, you can kind of have an advocate there to assist you in dealing with all this. Okay, moving. You also give out a lot of information on other aspects of the recovery in your chapter about emotional recovery. I thought this was really important as well. This is on page 58, kind of midway down the page, you write, there are many reasons survivors of sexual violence choose not to get help or not to tell anyone at all. They might think they won't be believed or supported, or don't want to burden an already overburdened family. They may dread that a loved one will seek violent revenge. Women who are sexually abused at work may be afraid they will become jobless. Some women who are financially dependent on their abusive partners are scared they won't be able to make it on their own. And as African Americans, we don't want to air our dirty laundry in a society that tends to emphasize what's wrong with us. It becomes a luxury to heal. That's how we look at therapy, explains Davine Del Valle, a psychotherapist at C.O.W.S, Allies in Healing in New York. You can't afford the time. You can't afford the money. It's not a priority. It doesn't matter if you're suffering and depressed and all the grief is trapped in your body. End quote. Survivors sometimes feel so overwhelmed by what happened that they think no amount of counseling can help. Black women often believe if we can't handle our problems alone, we are weak, crazy, or just not praying hard enough. Black women, I tell you, we think we are superhuman, says Joyce Estes, a psychologist in private practice in Columbus, Ohio. We're the worst offenders when it comes to not coming for treatment early enough. We're not supposed to be in pain, and by that time we have brainwashed everybody else around us to believe that we don't have pain. We just take care of their problems, and so we're the last ones dragging in the door. Real important point. Could you touch on that one for us?
Mm-hmm. We did, touch a bit on the reasons why, some of the reasons why Black women may choose not to report, not to seek help. But I always believe that if you seek help, you're the strong one, you're the brave one, you're the one who can love yourself in that beautiful way, and love. It's really showing a love for yourself and a love for your family and your friends and your community, that you want to be healthy for everyone, and you want to be healthy for yourself, and you deserve to feel healthy and to experience the deepest healing possible. So I just really applaud, again, not to criticize people who make a different choice, because people have to do what they think is best for them, but I really do applaud people who do decide to seek help, because it isn't easy. It isn't easy to a healing process isn't necessarily an easy thing. But I'll tell you this also, it's staying in pain is not easy either. That's no easy way to live either. So just the hope of healing, I would like to think can be motivation enough. The hope of healing can be motivation enough to get people to seek the help that they really do deserve.
Absolutely. This comes up a lot on the program around this issue and others when looking for therapists and to get counseling around issues that often there are not a lot of Black therapists, Black counselors to seek out. And you address this. This is on page 75. You write, when considering your comfort level during therapy, race can be a major factor. Some African American therapists say they have clients who have turned to them after negative experiences with white counselors. Reports Del Valle, they don't want to be scrutinized, sidestepped. People come in and say, well, I tried to work with somebody else I wasn't comfortable with. They stared at me or they took notes as they just look so horrified by anything I said that I just felt like I couldn't talk. I hear that over and over and over again. Therapists of color may be more likely to understand your special needs, but there are always exceptions. Of course, not all black therapists are good. Not all therapists of other races are unable to work successfully with black clients. Whatever the race or ethnicity of your counselor, your comfort level is the key to successful therapy because you will have to be honest about your experiences and feelings in order to progress. Therapy should be a respite for you, a place where you can say anything on your mind, even things you aren't comfortable sharing with family or friends. If you can't maintain a high level of comfort with a particular practitioner, don't feel bad about finding someone else. Remember, the therapist works for you. I know a lot of black people who listen to the program, they have expressed consternation about going to get a white therapist. What are your thoughts on that?
My first therapist, I had experienced depression and was blessed to already have a relationship with a black woman therapist. So it was great because I didn't have to spend that time of getting to know the person and building trust, and we could just really get right into the work. So who would have thought that depression would end up being a good thing in my life? I still agree with what I wrote that if you go to someone and you are not feeling them, they're not working out, you're not comfortable around them, you don't feel supported, get out of there and don't look back, don't feel bad, because as I wrote, that person works for you. This is all about you and your healing, and just remember, you deserve the best therapist that there is. You deserve the best, most supportive healing experience you can possibly find. So definitely, if you go to, for example, a practice where there are practitioners of different races, don't feel bad about asking for the black one if that's what you want.
Absolutely. You even, it's like I said, this is such an informative book. Anyone out there, if you are dealing with any form of sexual trauma or anyone you care about you should definitely get this book. You have some questions you should have in mind, even questions that you can ask potential therapist, counselor. Some of those questions, how much training and experience do you have handling sexual assault in particular and trauma in general? What is your professional category? Social worker, psychologist, etc. What academic degrees and professional certifications or licenses have you earned? What is your philosophy about healing? How long have you been practicing? Do you suggest any complementary healing techniques such as yoga or Reiki? For counselors in private practice, do you accept my medical insurance company? If so, what is my copay? If not, how much do you charge? Do you have any current or former clients willing to speak with me about their experience in therapy with you? I'm sure there are other questions you could ask. I was even thinking perhaps you could ask them, if it's a white therapist and you have some concerns, you could ask, do you have a history of working with black clients?
Oh, I wish I had thought to write that question in the book. That is a good question. Oh, what was I thinking? Yes, absolutely.
Great set of questions. You came up with, see, you have 7 and I did 1, so you're still way out ahead of me. But I mean, I think that is super important just to, kind of have some things in mind, things that are of concern to you, and, just ask before you even get involved with any of it and see what answers they give you. That right there might give you a lot of insight as to whether or not this is going to work out for you.
Absolutely, yes. Yep, I agree.
Again, our guest, Lori Robinson. You can visit her website, LoriRobinson.com. In the book, I Will Survive, The African American Guide to Healing from Sexual Assault and Abuse. If you have questions you want to ask, the number is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. If you're on that line and you have questions, press *6. I want to try to get many folks. If you all have questions or what have you, as soon as I see the hands, I'll hit the line. *6 if you dial that line. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it's *8. Cool. You also have a whole section devoted to family and friends, and I know we got a lot of listeners who are in that boat as well. Who they haven't necessarily experienced the abuse, but people that they care about have. And you offer suggestions on things that they can do to support their loved ones through this really difficult experience. What are some of the suggestions you would offer to them?
Well, for sure, one of the most important things is just being there, being available to just listen if the person needs to talk, or being available to just be present if they don't want to talk, but maybe perhaps feel like they'll feel more comforted or feel safer just to have someone present with them. No judgment, absolutely no judgment. So again, because the average American has been indoctrinated with so many rape myths, so much misinformation about sexual assault, the most well-meaning person, the person that loves you the most in the world, might want to say something like, well, why were you out that late? No, you do not say anything that places the blame on the victim, because no one is to blame except for the person who made the choice to force sexual activity or sexual contact on your loved one or friend. So really, really understand that it doesn't matter what this person, your friend or family member or loved one, what they said or didn't say, or what they wore or didn't wear, or they could have walked buck naked down the street at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they still have the right to not have anything done to their body that they don't give permission to. So no judgment when you are talking with them. Let's see, support, if a person needs, maybe wants to, is considering therapy, but doesn't have the energy or the wherewithal to seek out a counselor, maybe you can do some of that research for them, or make some phone calls. Maybe you can drive them to the Rape Crisis Center. Just being available, being supportive, non-judgmentally, and just being there for your loved one or friend. That's the most important thing.
No judgment. No judgment. Very important. They even have resources. If I read that correctly, they have resources for people who are, they didn't suffer the abuse, but they are a loved one of someone who suffered the abuse, in case they need to reach out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not. Might not find that at every single rape crisis center, but there certainly are some rape crisis centers that offer, for example, um, therapy or group group sessions for family members or friends. One of the terms that I learned doing the research for this book was that there's the primary victim and the secondary victim. So the secondary victim would be the loved one or the friend of the person who actually experienced the violence. And so it what we find is that often the secondary victim can have some of the same symptoms in terms of, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or some of the same fears, just level of stress. So, you may need support as well. So, don't think that you're crazy if you're finding that you're wiped out or depressed or just feeling scared. That's very common for loved ones and for people who are close to survivors to experience some of those same feelings. So, I would encourage you, if you are feeling some of those feelings, to get the support you need as well, and that way you can be the best support possible for your loved one.
Outstanding. I see some hands. You're confused. I see some folks, they might be confused about how to get their hand up. If you dial the 760-569-7676, if you dial that number, the code is 564943 pound. Press *6 if you're on that line and you have a question. I'll get your hand. If you're on the Talk Shoe line, different number. If you're on the Talk Shoe line, you got to press *8 if you have a question over there. I'll get the hands as they come. If you continue to have confusion, just let me know. You can write it in the chat room or email if you are still confused about how to get your hand up. I believe this is S. Dot on the 5301 line. S. Dot, your line should be open.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you to the guests for sharing this evening. I'm a survivor of sexual trauma. When I was about 5 years old, I was molested by a female babysitter who was about 16 years old, and that immediately began me delving into experimentation in terms of sex at a very early age. And I had a very sexualized life growing up. And most of the young guys that I knew at the time always made it seem like that was something to be celebrated, that I was introduced to sex at an early age. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my male friends, as we got older, I realized that it was fairly common amongst my social group that many of the males that I knew were sexually molested, particularly by black females. Mm-hmm. And it seems that when a lot of black males are sexually molested by black females, they tend to not view it as molestation or just ignore it altogether. And in your experience, how forthcoming have black males been about their sexual molestation as a result or at the hands of black females? Mm-hmm. And what are some resources? Because as I was looking for resources, there were not a lot. Most of the information seems to be geared to the perspective of women who were molested, or if it was for males, it was males who were molested by other males. There was very little, if any, that dealt with males being molested by females, and almost next to nothing by black males being molested by black females. So when I saw the film Antoine Fisher, it was a breakthrough moment for me, and I saw it in a room of a group of guys, and about 7 of these guys, as grown men, were crying because that was their life story.
Wow.
So I saw it on a men's retreat, thinking about 2005.
Okay.
And it was probably about 80 men there, and about 7 or 8 of the men were crying because that was their life story. And,
nice.
It's just a lot more common than people talk about. So if you know of any resources for men, and more specifically black men, to deal with that, could you share them?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say I'm very sorry that you had that experience, and wish for you whatever healing and support that you need. I really hope that you find it. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Honestly, I have not come across many male survivors because of the reasons that you've stated, I believe. I think that men who were sexually abused as children by males don't, in many cases, don't disclose because of the concern or fear of being categorized as gay, you articulated very well why males who are sexually victimized by women or girls do not disclose, or maybe do not even understand that it was a victimization and that it was inappropriate, again, because of what our society teaches about sex and gender. Unfortunately, I don't know of resources specifically for male survivors of female perpetrators. I do know that there are a couple of organizations, I believe, for male survivors, but I don't know how. I don't believe that they have a focus on men who are survivors of sexual violence committed by women or girls. So I'm so sorry. I wish I did have more information for you. There's a website called malesurvivor.org that seems to have a lot of good resources, and that's just malesurvivor.org. I see another website called oneinsix.org. That is a well-known statistic that it's estimated that 1 in 6 boys will experience some type of sexual victimization by the time they reach 18. So there, again, I don't know that they have a focus on men who were sexually abused by women or girls, but it's if you go to the website, hopefully you'll be able to find at least some information that will be helpful to you. And that website is the numeral 1, the letter I, the letter N, the numeral 6 .org, 1in6.org. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, just one other follow-up question, and I'll let someone else go. Because one of the things that I discovered is when I initially recognized that as a result of being molested from a child, that it made most of my relationships where I was hypersexual and very sexually aggressive and promiscuous. When I began the process of trying to deal with and address this, the only resources that dealt with men in molestation happened to be men who were molested by males. And when I attended a few of those group sessions and I shared my situation, I was immediately attacked by these other males who were like acting as if because my person who molested me was a female, that I shouldn't be complaining about it. And that just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. I've had females who I've dated over the years who have given me the same sort of response. Like, because I'm a male, like, I shouldn't be complaining because a female did that to me. And what I wanted to know is, how much do you think plays into a lot of the sexually aggressive behavior that a lot of black males engage in? Because I know a lot of black males who are very sexually aggressive with females, being promiscuous, and many of these black males have been molested by females. So how widespread would you think that is?
I have to be honest and tell you I really don't know any statistics about that. Anything that I would say would just be like a total wild guess, because if there's research about that, I haven't seen it yet. But I will say that, again, unfortunately, I'm not that surprised because just of the prevalence of the misinformation about sexual assault and sexual abuse. It's so unfortunate, but I would say I really encourage you to just know that, you are absolutely correct that what happened to you was a victimization. I'm so happy to know that you are seeking resources for your healing, and definitely if you are in a space like the ones you've described where people are dismissive of what was essentially a sexual trauma, something that for you was traumatic, then that means that's not the right space for you. And so I do believe that you'll be able to find, the right space, whether it's a group or individual therapy or whatever it is that you need. And I do encourage people to just, if you find a space and it's not the right space, just keep seeking until you're able to find the resource that's right for you. Let me give you one other resource. It's the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, and that's just the letters of the first letters of each word make up the website. So it's nsvrc.org for National Sexual Violence Resource Center.org. They may have some resources or be able to refer you to some organizations that can provide you with the kind of resources and information and support that you need. But congratulations for seeking support, and I think that's a really important thing that we just acknowledge and be honest about all types of victimizations, no matter who the perpetrator is. We really, it's just not acceptable, and we just cannot allow this to continue, whether it's a black man, black woman, black girl, black boy who is the perpetrator. It's just equally unacceptable for people to be victimizing other people. So thank you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, S. Appreciate you calling in and telling listeners about your experiences and your work. Definitely want to commend you for starting up the groups with the other males and seeking out those resources. I put the address in the chat room for the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. It's nsvrc.org. Again, it's nsvrc.org if you want to visit their website. The person who dialed in, last four digits 0078, 0078. If you have a question for Ms.
Yes, hello, how are you? Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, my name is Almaz. And again, Kyles, I wanted to thank you so much for being on my radio show last year, Moz to the Max. I really appreciated that. I wanted to thank you a zillion times because a billion is not enough.
Right on. Right on. Thank you.
Yes, I really. Okay. My thing is, I'm a nurse, if you can remember, Master the Mox. I'm a nurse, and I work with people like this, and it's so disheartening because I see these women, and they're talking like, "Well, that happened to me, and I grew up okay." I mean, I'm talking about women who put their daughters out on the street at 13. Look, baby girl, I made my money. You have to make yours. I've dealt with men who have been sexually abused by men and women, babysitters and whatever, and then they're going off making all these baby mamas and being sexually active, and they don't know why because they're fractured. How do I and then the thing is, I hear women at the center that I volunteer at talking about girls. Oh, she's fast. Oh, she's fast. Oh, she's fast.
What kind of center is it where you work?
It's a women's center in Lake County, Illinois. We deal with women who we try to get them on their feet. Maybe they had children too young, had prison records, or fallen through the cracks, teenage pregnancies, and we try to get them skills, get them their high school diplomas, and not GEDs. Those are good enough degrees. We need high school diplomas, college courses, things like that.
I see. Well, the first
and it's so fractured, and it just some days I try to be positive, but other days it's like, oh my goodness.
Well, thank you for that work and for being the voice of reason, apparently, in your professional setting. The first thing that comes to mind for me is one of the functions of rape crisis centers is to go out and do education in the community. So I don't know, have you ever thought about calling the local rape crisis center and asking them to come?
Oh, yes, we work in tandem with them, and then there was a couple of white folks there that I had to curse. I mean, and I try to be civilized, but there's some people that I can't be civilized with because some of these women at the center think that black people are not supposed to feel no pain. They negate their humanity. And that's the first thing that I have to deal with people negating our humanity. So they think, oh, whatever happens, you brought this on yourself. You fast. You shouldn't have been out on the street. I mean, maybe she was coming home from work.
Well, even if she was on the street, does that mean that she has the right to be violated? I think not.
Exactly. And this is the stuff that I deal with when I'm trying to work with people who've been in these situations. And I tried to have some black psychologists come in. I called the National Black Psychologists of America. I found a couple of women in Chicago. One of them was very good, and one of them was completely awful because she was, as they would say, codified.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm blanking on her name. I'm so disappointed I cannot come up with her name right now. But there is a powerful woman who I believe is based in Chicago who's just done some of the most impressive research. I saw her speak at a national sexual assault conference once, and I can't think her name.
And
But I mean, honestly, if I don't want, I consider myself an optimist, but at the same time, if there are people who are kind of committed to their racism,
right?
I don't know what you can do in a situation like that besides, just doing your best to expose them to the correct information that's about this is if you really are here to serve the population that comes through our doors. Please read this.
Yes, and I've been doing this for 15 years and almost 20 years now. Some of the girls have made it, and some of the girls that don't. And it's like I'm fighting an uphill battle every day because it's like, the people that are supposed to be, helpful, those are the ones that are the most detriment. They're the ones that are the most detrimental. And, every day it's like if I don't leave without cursing somebody out or damn near punching somebody's head off, it's a good day. But I stick with it because I do believe that we can make a difference. But unfortunately,
you've clearly made a difference in the life. Just the fact that you've said that some girls that have come through have been able to change their lives, that's powerful. That probably would not have happened if it were not for your presence.
But sometimes I cry because of R.W.S. It's like they want to, every minute they want to take away the funding. They want to do this, they want to do that. And then I ask people in the black community with money, hey, give us some money and support this. Oh, that doesn't happen in our community. That's something that white folks do. I'm like, well, come here and deal what I deal with. I'm specifically dealing with people of color. White people can take care of themselves. I'm not trying to be a butt, but you know what? We have to start taking care of one another.
Yeah,
because white people will take care of themselves. I'm specifically trying to look out for my beautiful black sisters and my beautiful girls of color because those are the ones that get hurt the most.
Well, I just definitely recommend, it sounds like you know what to do and you know your community, just being in alliance with, as many people as you can who are on the same page as you, and it just sounds like you're already doing the work. I don't know what advice I could give you that would be more helpful than just connecting with, finding, seeking out, and always kind of staying aware of the people who get it, who really do have our children's, our girls, our boys' best interests at heart, and just being in community with them and collaborating with them to the degree that you can. Beyond that, it's tough. It's just tough, as you said, with funding being taken away and all of that. I guess. One resource that I would recommend to you, it's not based in Chicago, it's based in on the East Coast, but it's the National Organization of Sisters of Color Ending Sexual Assault.
Okay,
It's CSA, SCESA. Let me make sure their website is still active. Okay, their website is Sisters Lead, SISTERSLEAD.org.
Got it. Okay, got it.
I love the two sisters that founded this organization are phenomenal. They primarily really do a lot of lobbying work, but they also have these periodic national conferences where they bring together women of color, diverse women of color who are just powerful, doing the kind of work that you're doing in their own communities, and it's an opportunity to learn from each other and to lift each other up. So, and also they do, CSA may know of the latest resources that I might not be aware of. So that's a good organization to be in contact with.
You know what? I'm going to go because I know there are other people that want to ask questions. But thank you so much, and thank you for your encouragement. And yes,
okay.
I try to stay energetic, even though some days when I go home, I just want to just cry because it's like it's an uphill battle. Because it seems like the more I'm trying to make a difference, the more the RWS are doing everything they can to try to, make me go 3 steps back.
No, you have to know that you are making a difference every day. Your presence, just showing up, period, is making a difference. You have to know that. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for calling in. How about that?
Thank you for having me.
For sure. Do you want to tell them your program before you sign out so folks can tune in?
Oh, my program, I haven't been on in a while because I had to go back to Eritrea, Ethiopia to take care of some family business. But my show is Maz to the Max. I'm on Blog Talk Radio and I'm on Talk Show.
Maz to the Max. Maz to the Max.
Yep, exactly. And again, I wanted to thank you for being on my show. And I'm going to be bringing up these topics, but I'm going to be a truth terrorist, and people hate that.
You better go. I love it.
Oh, I go in on people. I don't care.
I love it.
Right. So we will be looking out for you. I'm sure listeners will as well. Thank you for dialing in. Appreciated the input, and keep up the excellent work that you're doing. It's definitely appreciated. You're having an impact.
I'm trying, just send out some universal thoughts of love and positiveness so I can keep this going, because, again, this is crazy. I see it every day when I'm there, and I'm seeing every day in my life when I'm doing this stuff. And RWS, they're doing everything that they can to make sure that it's not a success. And then when I try to bring it up, they say, oh, you're deflecting. Oh, it's always this deflection and derailing. Oh, no, it's not like that. Oh, no, you're overly sensitive. Oh, no, it's really not like that.
No, that's how you know you are doing the right thing.
Yeah, and they don't realize that, I'm a crazy African who grew up in Israel under a lot of racism, too, so don't even play with me. Your house might get blowed up.
Oh, Lord.
Right on. I want to make sure.
But they're on their job doing what they got to do, so I got to do my job. So whatever they try to do, I'm going to circumnavigate them. Never going to let them win. Never, even if it kills me. Never.
And it's not going to kill you because you will be held up.
But the problem is, though, some of these so-called black power, Pan-Africanist, conscious, whatever people, sometimes they're really not for you. Sometimes they're agents. They're the ones that are keeping you down as that they're supposed to be on your side, and you realize, wait a minute, they're not true to what they believe. But that's a topic for another show.
Yeah, I hear you. That's just our history, like globally, right? There's always someone who's not gonna do the right thing for their own personal benefit and gain. But nevertheless, you just have to know that you are on the right path and you are appreciated, and your presence is making a profound difference. And I know just by this conversation that you have saved people's lives, and so I just really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely evening.
You too.
Thank you. You too. Person that dialed in on the talk. Oh, this Minnie B. Minnie B, your line should be open. The other folks, if you're listening in and you have questions, don't wait till the last minute. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943#. Press *6 if you have a question on that line. *8 if you're on the TalkShoe line. Minnie B, your line should be open. Shooby-doo.
Shooby-doo. Gus, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello to you and the guest. What is her name?
Lori.
Lori. Well, this is Minnie B, and I wanted to just give some appreciation to you and the work that you're doing, and to Gus and this series of the cows regarding sexual abuse and survival. And I wasn't going to call in because for a number of reasons, but I felt like I needed to speak out and have my voice and not speak out. And what I wanted to say was that a number of these shows have really triggered some repressed memories of past sexual abuse for myself as a child, but I also, as an adult, was violently raped at gunpoint, and the residual of that is that I don't stay on the first floor, or I always look and see if there's a way out. But one of the things I wanted to say to the listeners that may experience rape in the future, or that have experienced it, is that you survive. That you survive, because if you don't survive the attack, that's it. But when you survive it, you can set about the process of helping yourself heal from that wound and those wounds. And the other thing I wanted to share was that when we teach our young people how to be in public, how to be aware in public, like with my son, as he was growing up, he's out with his buddies, and they don't even think about that there's this woman walking in front of them, and she's looking behind, or she could be nervous, or she's just feeling scared. That what are some of the things he can do to just alleviate that? You know what I mean?
Well, thank you so much for, again, having the courage to share your story. And also, just as you said, I really like that, you just called because you needed your voice to be heard. I just think that that's in and of itself so powerful, that I just want all black women to just feel like my voice needs to be heard, just because I'm here and I'm breathing and I'm alive and I'm a black woman. And so, yes, people need to hear my voice. I think that in and of itself is so powerful, and just such a great example for everyone who's listening, that we've just been made invisible for far too long, and that those days are over. But thank you for just your message, about healing, and I would like to actually just add to that I remember shortly after I was raped, I guess I was at a conference, or I was in some group setting where we were kind of doing some self-defense training, and I asked the question of the trainer, did I do the right thing? Should I have done something differently? Could I have prevented this? And her response was, well, you're still here. You're alive, so you did the right thing. So just a message to survivors that if you are alive, you are a survivor. No matter how broken you might feel right now, you have already survived, and your journey as a survivor has the potential to be the most complete and fulfilling healing journey ever. I mean, I don't care who the perpetrator was or how many times you were victimized. There is no question in my mind that every survivor has the potential to experience deep, deep healing and to just be as emotionally healthy and vibrant and strong and happy as a person who has never been victimized. I deeply, truly believe that. So thank you for your message about just being a survivor. It's
and my victimization doesn't define who I am.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's
So thank you for the work that you're doing and sharing your voice. And Gus,
thank you.
Thank you.
Shooby-doo. Did she get, I guess, your question around what males, because you were talking about your son when they're out and kind of maybe not being aware. Did you get that, Miss Robinson?
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking, let's see. I do remember, talking to some people who had some really good, I don't have children, but talking to some people who had some really good advice about that. I'm not coming up with anything that's specific to kind of the scene that she was describing, like just guys being out in public and having an awareness of how women might be feeling in the presence of multiple men. I just think first and foremost, just having the awareness that because of the experiences some women have had, that seeing a group of men or being close to a group of men can make someone nervous. Just having that awareness in and of itself is kind of a powerful idea, and I just think if boys and men do have that awareness, then they would be able to, move or speak or just be in a way that would definitely feel non-threatening, I guess I want to say.
Sure.
But also just in terms of teaching boys, if you have male children in your life, teaching them to be safe and feel empowered to, first of all, as we've heard, almost as many boys as girls are sexually victimized. So teaching both boys and girls the accurate language about their genitals, empowering them to know that they are the only person who has the right to control and decide what happens to their own body. A couple of examples I'm remembering. I remember a woman saying that when her son is tickling the daughter, and even though they're playing and they love each other and they're happy, she's taught them that if she says stop, even if she's laughing, if she says stop, you stop immediately. Just that idea that you respect what other people say about touching their bodies, I thought was a very powerful idea. I remember another person telling me that one thing that she did with her children was, because we in our society still children are kind of taught to, be seen and not heard to a degree. Like don't make a scene, be respectful, be quiet when you're in public. But this woman wanted her children to feel empowered to be as loud and call as much attention to themselves as possible if someone ever tried to touch them or take them somewhere and they didn't know the person. So she said when they would be in the car driving together, she would have them have contests to scream as loud as possible. Who can be the loudest? I just thought that was so powerful because I just remember as a child, you know, if you scream, you're always being told to be quiet. So those are just a couple of ideas, and I think there are more in my book, but we have to start young with our children, teaching them to be safe and teaching them at the same time to be respectful, to understand the concept of consent and being respectful of other people's space. And you do that in age-appropriate ways. So you do that differently with a 5-year-old than you do with a 15-year-old, obviously. But just continuing to have those open conversations with your children is really important. And so for many adults, that's going to mean, because, again, we've been so ingrained and inundated with so many rape myths and so much misinformation about sexual assault and abuse, you may have to go do some education on your own so that you're prepared to have those conversations. But, it's definitely worth the time and effort for your own children's sake and for, if your children are aware, they'll be teaching their friends, and it's just a win-win for everybody when we make that a priority to teach our children.
Have you done any research, or what's your opinion about, and I don't want to call it a phenomena, but for lack of a better word right now, of children raping children? Have you been paying attention to any of the reports of 12-year-olds raping 5-year-olds and
yeah, I don't have statistics about that, and that's one of those questions that I've just always wondered. Has this been going on and we just didn't know about it? Is it really a new phenomenon? I don't know. How do we know? Because how do we know how many children have never disclosed or have never, even understood that, as the earlier caller said, guys and men and women are telling him, why would you be upset about having a sexual experience that young? So people may not even be understanding that what happened to them was a violation or a victimization. So I know I'm sorry I don't have more information or a very good answer to your question, but I am aware that children are victimizing other children. I'm not convinced that it's new. There might be new awareness about it, but I'm not convinced that this is a new phenomenon.
Well, thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
Good to hear from you, Minnie B. And thank you for calling in and sharing. I appreciate all of the listeners who dialed in, who have opened up about their own experiences. Definitely want to commend you all for sharing that with us. The person who called in from California, you had a question for Miss Lori Robinson. Your line should be open.
Yes, I have two questions. One, I wanted to know, have you found that the absence or presence of a father in the home makes a difference in the rate of sexual abuse? And the second question, I've noticed a ton of news reports about sexual abuse and molestation by teachers and others recently. I don't think the phenomenon is new. I think it's been going on forever. As someone I know has a relative who's worked in news and media and stated that there's a lot of stories we never hear about. They choose what to report. Do you think that there is an agenda behind suddenly releasing all of these stories, and to what end?
Okay, well, first I would say, as a journalist, I just think that the quality of the news media is not very good in this country in general. So I think because of the Sandusky tragedy, it's like you hear about one incident and all of a sudden, let's report about more of these incidents now that there's a national incident that people are paying attention to. People are interested in this all of a sudden. So I would agree with you that it's not new that there are teachers who are sexually abusing children. What we do know is that anytime there's institutions where you have hierarchy, where you have, for example, the Catholic Church scandal, you have children who are with these adult figures who are supposed to be, looked up to. You're taught to look up to them, to do whatever they say because this is the most respected and revered figure in our community. That's not, and it's, trust me, not just, as you know, not just limited to the Catholic Church, although their scandal was quite prevalent and widespread. But the same could be said for teachers. You're taught, you go to school, you listen to that teacher, you do whatever the teacher says. That's often the message that our children get, and they're not getting the other part of the message about no one has the right, no matter who they are, no matter what authority they're given by society or by other people, no one has the right to touch you without your permission, and no one should be touching you. It is inappropriate for adults or children to be touching your private parts. So, I agree with you that it's not a new phenomenon, and I think that the media is just kind of jumping on a trend, honestly, in reporting.
Do you think there's some ulterior motive? I think I've heard someone mention that it could be setting the ground for them arguing to lower the age of consent for children, once people get used to hearing the stories, or to desensitize them? I honestly, I don't think the people in the media are thinking about that. I think they're just thinking about, if it's television, they're thinking about ratings. If it's print media, they're thinking about, selling ads and selling newspapers and selling magazines. So I personally, based on my understanding of the media, I don't think, that there's some kind of agenda like that. I just think that it's the way the media functions in this country. It's about, honestly, the bottom line is about money, making money. That's what I think it's about. Okay. And the first question about the effect of fathers' presence or absence in the home on sexual abuse?
Yeah. I have not seen any research on that. So unfortunately, I can't give you any answer beyond just anecdotal information. I just think that it's anecdotally, from what I've heard and read, and the people that I've interviewed and talked to, being in a single parent home doesn't necessarily, or having an absent father doesn't necessarily result in a higher level of abuse or victimization. But again, that's really totally anecdotal. I don't know any research on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Robinson, do you have time for another question? There was another hand that went up.
Yes, I could do another question.
Okay. Long-time investor and caller, Mr. Nero. Good to hear from you. Your line should be open, sir.
Greetings. May I be heard?
Shooby-doo. We can hear you.
Shooby-doo. Ma'am, I just want to thank you for being on the broadcast. I missed a significant portion of the show, so I will download the archives and re-listen. Thank you also for validating the feelings of the black people that called in. That was very refreshing because I'm used to hearing us put each other down when we share trauma with one another. So I really want to thank you for doing that as well.
Oh, thank you.
My question to you, ma'am, is, and I don't know if maybe this has been covered, but do you feel that the sexual abuse that happens between black people, do you feel that this is a big contributor to the anti-blackness that we have for one another?
That is an interesting question. I don't think so. I think that again, I think the media is so powerful, and just the institutional racism, just what we're taught in school, what we're not taught in school, the subtle messages that we just receive about ourselves as we move through society. I think that's where the self-hate comes from. I find that, and I say that because most people, unlike historically, obviously during slavery, post-slavery, back then, most often when black people were raped, they were raped by white people. Today, most white people who are raped are raped by whites, and most black people who are raped by black people. And I don't find that black survivors are any more or less anti-black than people who have not experienced sexual violence or any type of sexual abuse. So, again, that's not something I've seen research about, but my gut about that is that sexual assault and abuse is not the cause of self-hatred that exists within our community. I think it comes from just historical legacies, media, institutional racism, and just the confusion that has existed because of going back to the transatlantic slave trade, just the legacies of the self-hatred that has been passed down and continues to fester. That's my gut feeling about that.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate your answer.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Good to hear from you, Mr. Nero. I know there were quite a few folks saying, "What happened to Mr. Nero?" They will be glad to hear your voice in the archives. Know you are still on the plantation, still listening in. Groovy. We have done the program. I don't see any more hands, so I assume folks are good. If not, if you do have other questions and you didn't want to comment on the program, you can visit Miss Robinson's website. It's her name, LoriRobinson.com. LoriRobinson.com. It's in the description for the program. It's in the chat room. You can get more information about the book, see other appearances that she's made, articles, radio programs, lots of info and information on sexual trauma, recovering from it. Just great site and fantastic book. Again, I do not have...
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words and support of my book. Thank you.
It is well earned. I would highly recommend it for any of the folks listening in. It is really a gold mine of information. I know we have so many folks out there who are dealing with sexual trauma. This is a book you should have on your bookshelf, and maybe get 2 copies so you can share it with some other folks. I guess to kind of wrap up with the important, you have it in your book, the section where you talk about, and you've already touched on it, getting comfortable talking with our children about these issues. It's so prevalent. There was recently the news report of Larry Brinken out in California, and he was molesting and raping 1-year-olds. And just to emphasize the importance of, you got to talk to your children about these issues, and just really encourage them to know how to respond, to tell you if anything inappropriate is happening, and how best to try to defend themselves and get distance should some sort of abuse or attack happen. And you said in your book you encouraged parents to take advantage of these sorts of news reports. When you see something like the Jerry Sandusky situation, or Coach Fine up at Syracuse, or any of the other incidents, use that as a learning opportunity, a teachable moment, as President Obama would say. Hey, this is in the news. Let's talk about this. Let's make this the subject of our dinner conversation. What happened in this event? What would you do in this situation? How would you try to respond to it? Just if you want to close out, anything you would tell parents with regards to what they should be talking about with their children.
Yes, that's actually a family that a mother I interviewed. She and her husband had 3 or 4 children, and I remember this very topic, talking about, it wasn't an incident in the news, but a child that attended the same school as their children had been abducted and sexually abused. And so, again, taking that as a teachable moment, what she said she did was they talked at dinner and explained to their children, if someone tries to take you away, scream, yell, run in the opposite direction, run for help. If you see a police officer or just an adult, just as you said, try to do anything you can to put distance between you and them. And then she said she asked her children to give it back to them. In other words, to tell them what they understood about what their parents just explained. And she was glad they did, because the children, or at least one of the children, thought she meant run around in circles. She wasn't understanding that she meant, no, run away. So it's got to be a 2-way conversation, I guess, is the moral of that story. Get yourself educated. If you're not comfortable talking about these issues, get comfortable talking about these issues, and get comfortable not only talking but listening, allowing your children to say what they want and need to say, allowing them to use words that maybe you weren't allowed to use as a child. If that's what they're hearing about at school and they don't know what that means, and they heard such and so is doing this and that, allowing them the freedom to be able to say whatever they need to say, because that's ultimately what's going to help them stay as safe as possible. I think that's really important.
Well said. I will repeat that. If you are not comfortable talking about this subject matter, get comfortable talking about this subject matter. I think one of the earlier programs we were discussing this said you can either be a little nervous, a little squeamish talking about this in a preventive stance, or you can be uncomfortable talking about it after the fact when it's too late. Make a decision. The website, again, LoriRobinson.com. The book, I Will Survive, The African American Guide to Healing from Sexual Assault and Abuse. Gold star, outstanding information. Definitely get a copy of the book. Share, just phenomenal work. Excellent job putting it together. Hopefully we can have you back on the program in the future, because I know this is a really important topic, and I'm sure listeners would enjoy. We didn't even get to cover more of the stuff from the book I had highlighted. But yeah, we will definitely be in touch with you to see if we can have you back on soon.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and thank you for focusing on this topic on your show. I really appreciate that you made the decision to do this series. It's so important for our entire community. So thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure was ours. Again, Lori Robinson, author, journalist, and survivor. We will be in touch and keeping up with your great work. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will speak with you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Good evening. Wow. The C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy. Excellent book. I can't say that enough. Excellent book. I Will Survive, The African American Guide to Healing from Sexual Assault and Abuse. Phenomenal effort. And again, this is Sylvia Coleman. I can direct this all back to one source, Sylvia Coleman. Her website, blacksurvivors.org. She had all those great resources, books and websites, and just a treasure trove of info on ways that black people can heal and recuperate and inform themselves, even if you're not a victim of some sort of acute sexual trauma. Just if you want to get more information, pass on to your children or other black people. Phenomenal website. Sylvia Coleman, she was on the program the first of the month. Her book, Creating a New Normal, and the website, blacksurvivors.org. We will take a quick commercial, be right back in case anybody wants to share anything before we wrap things up. Context of White Supremacy.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at TRIMultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the C.O.W.S radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he sit around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day. He said, yeah, I got a white wife. I love her. She loves me. That's all that matters. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker. I'll kill my cracker kid, too.
Context of white supremacy. I meant to say it earlier, and our guest was still on the program. Toast to C.O.W.S and Joan Little. Our guest, Miss Robinson, she has a dedication in the front of the book to C.O.W.S, victim of racism, white supremacy, and for sure, soldier against racism, white supremacy. Joan Little, we've talked about her before. Danielle McGuire, racist suspect, white woman when she was on the program, and Joan Little, who killed a racist prison guard in North Carolina who was attempting to rape her while she was in greater confinement, and she took him off the earth. Job well done. Joan Little, C.O.W.S. We'll be back tomorrow. The program will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Professor Vernelia Randall, she's the author of Dying While Black. She's been on the program twice before. We talked about her book. Last time she was here, we were talking about, she made the statement way back, August 2009, that every single law, every last one of them, supports the system of racism, white supremacy, and we decided to use the Scott sisters case as a study to see if that is actually true. And she broke down just different ways where she thinks that is a true statement and can be evidenced. She'll be with us tomorrow. The whole controversy around what they are calling Obamacare, even though I think they're saying that in a pejorative sense. They're trying to be disparaging of President Obama, non-white male victim of racism. But anywho, she'll be here tomorrow to share her thoughts on the healthcare bill, as well as a lot of the hubbub around the bill. When she was here in 2009, all of this was kind of just getting started, and people were talking about his healthcare package. I think at the time, that's when they were having all those town hall meetings, and people were coming out with guns and what have you. This was back in summer of 2009, and she was saying that she felt that a lot of the response to this on the part of white people was racism. And she said when you ask questions about what it is that they don't like about the bill, that they couldn't be very specific, and their responses just were not logical. And she said that she didn't think the healthcare package went far enough. She said she wasn't even really in support of it way back then because it really wasn't doing enough to help people who were in need of medical attention. So I thought it would be great to kind of get her on the program to revisit that now that, it's become a major issue for the 2012 election, to get her thoughts on the package as well as the response to it. But that'll be tomorrow. Vernelia Randall, black female, excellent book, by the way, Dying While Black. You should definitely read that. You can go back and hit the archives and hear when she was here the first and second time, but that book, phenomenal. Anywho, before I hit the phone lines, invest. If you think the program is constructive, definitely appreciated. Listener supported. Thanks to everyone who has invested and supported our efforts. And with the books, folks who've got stuff off the wish list. I got this book off the wish list. Fantastic purchase. Hope the program has been worthy of all the folks who supported, continues to be worthy of your time, energy, currency. Value your time, certainly. If it's not the cows, you're not getting constructive information, don't listen. We have so many problems and things that we need to be focusing our attention on. We don't have time to waste. Second thing I'll make sure I get in, again, not that I'm promoting folks to watch television. As Dr. Welsing says, reading is more important than television viewing. But that episode of Law and Order, Personal Foul, man, if you got 40 minutes, of downtime, I would say check out that episode. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around everything that was presented. I mean, the racism is there. That's, to be expected, but just, wow. It is, it's saying a lot. I think they are revealing a lot about what they do, especially to black athletes in that episode. Personal Foul is the title of it. Law and Order Special Victims Unit. It came out in 2011. I put in the chat room that Coach Bernie Fine, I'm going to have to play that sound clip again because I don't think a lot of people heard that. I shared it with Brother Dawa. He didn't know what I was talking about. Bernie Fine, the coach at Syracuse, he was fired. White man. He got fired right after the Jerry Sandusky thing. They fired him in December of 2011. Same thing, molesting young boys, young males, raping children. He was an assistant basketball coach at Syracuse. Now, Carmelo Anthony is in this episode on Law and Order. Carmelo Anthony, basketball player, going to the Olympics in a couple weeks. He already has one gold medal. He's been, this will be the third time he's been on the Olympic team. He won an NCAA championship at Syracuse, 2003. Bernie Fine was assistant basketball coach at Syracuse in 2003. I'm not saying anything happened to Carmelo Anthony. I haven't heard any reports of that. I'm just saying, watch the episode. I think white people are revealing a lot, a gargantuan amount about what they do to black males, especially if you're going to be a black male athlete and become a big star. You're probably going to have to pay some prices, and that could include getting sodomized. Man, I'll just leave it there. Check out the episode and, come to your own conclusions. I need to watch. I've only seen it once, and I just remember sitting there and staring at the screen. I mean, it's online. You can check it out. If you don't have television or cable or whatever the case may be, you can just view it online. Just punch it up, Law and Order, Personal Foul, and it should pop up. You can see the whole thing online in great quality. Anywho, I will check to see if the folks that are online have anything they wanted to share. Minnie B, I think Pumpkin, Mr. Nero, and S. Dot, your line should be open if you all had anything you wanted to share on the information our guest shared with us today or anything related to that topic. Your lines should be open.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I have been reading about George Zimmerman and the cousin that he had been molesting. That's the news this evening, that she is speaking out now. George Zimmerman, the racist who murdered Trayvon Martin? Anybody else read about that?
I just saw it.
Hello?
I saw it today. Yes, you can be heard. I just saw it today as we went on, but I didn't have time to really dig in on it, so I don't know very much information about it.
She's saying that the accuser is saying that the molestation happened at Zimmerman's parents' house, and I recall Zimmerman's father is a judge. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, and she contacted the prosecutors after Trayvon Martin's murder to tell on him. I think people who rape and molest children and think they get away with it may be a gateway to murder.
I guess just to catch folks up, I'm catching myself up too. This is on ABC. This was reported like in the last few hours. George Zimmerman's lawyer says molest claim irrelevant to murder case. Lawyer for accused murderer George Zimmerman said today that a woman who claims he molested her for years as a child was Zimmerman's cousin and said his legal team would vigorously defend him against the allegations. Lawyer Mark O'Mara also appeared to question why the prosecution released the woman's accusation. In a statement released today, O'Mara said that he had sought to block the release last month, arguing the content of this statement is not relevant to the issues of this case and it would not be admissible in the state's case in chief. He also argued that the irrelevant statement should be withheld from public dissemination for fear that it would create hostile publicity that could pose a serious threat to the administration of justice. Judge Kenneth Lester had rejected O'Mara's motion, but the lawyer filed a new motion today to block release of the woman's statement. The prosecution, however, released her claim along with other evidence in the case, which includes dozens of Zimmerman's jailhouse phone calls. The woman is identified in court papers only as witness 9. Now that this statement is a part of the public record, the defense will vigorously defend Mr. Zimmerman against the allegations. In the next several weeks, there will be reciprocal discovery filed regarding witness 9's statement, O'Mara said. The prosecution contends that they were simply following an earlier ruling by the court that called for the release. Zimmerman, charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of unarmed teenager Trayvon Martin, is not charged in connection to the molestation accusations. He is currently out of jail on a $1 million bond. This is the first time in my life I'm not afraid of him, she told investigators when asked why she decided to come forward now. I know he is not going to be out in public. I'm not afraid of him now. The witness is heard weeping throughout parts of the interview as she recounted the allegations that she said began at age 6. Zimmerman, who was 2 years older, allegedly began touching and feeling her against her will. She told investigators the incidents often happened during family get-togethers. Every time that we would go up there, I would look at him and he would give me a certain look and I would know it would happen, she told investigators. The woman had previously declined to speak to ABC News. In the most disturbing charge, witness 9 recounted an alleged incident that occurred soon after Zimmerman moved to Florida, where she claims that he forced himself on her. I wanted to believe that everyone was good and that people change. I wanted it just to stop. I didn't want to ever have to tell anyone. I didn't want to be sad, and Georgie always made himself look so good. He always sucked up to my dad. He was charming. When I got there, no one was there, but I was already scared. I wanted to run, but I didn't know what to do. He told me to lay on the bed, but I did. I felt that he had an erection. I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I got up and ran, she told police. She told investigators that in 2005, she told her family who confronted Zimmerman in a restaurant about the allegations and that they were in shock. Instead of talking about it, he sat down at the end of the booth and said, "I'm sorry," and just got up and walked out, according to the report. The witness said she and her family decided against pressing charges, but that Zimmerman has been estranged from them ever since. In a separate recording, the same witness alleged that the Zimmerman family had made statements that they don't like black people. Growing up, they've always made him and his family have always made statements that they don't like black people if they don't act like white people. They like black people if they act white. Other than that, they talk a lot of bad things about black people, she claimed. She later said that she had never seen Zimmerman or his family act on those feelings. This is ABC News. The report is George Zimmerman's lawyer says molest claim irrelevant to murder case.
I would have to disagree that it's irrelevant, because if he would be aggressive and sexually violent with a child, what is to say that he wouldn't be that way, with Trayvon Martin initiating that conflict? As well, I do believe there are also reports of him having an obsessive, or stalkerish behavior, where people, I've just heard things that support him having an aggressive nature, and this would go along with that. This would betray that goody two-shoes image that they've painted of him, trying to do the right thing and be the hero and things like that. I think it's very relevant to his character and his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Intimidation.
Yep.
And what I heard from the report, it sounds consistent with the way these things go down.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
With this Trayvon Martin situation, one thing that's rather disturbing to me that very few people seem to bring up is that as a parent, I tell my offspring that if you're ever confronted by an adult in an alleyway or in any situation where you feel uncomfortable, you're supposed to kick, scream, yell, bite, do whatever you need to do to get out of that situation. And from the events as they've been presented, Trayvon Martin found himself being followed, being stalked by an individual who he did not know, who could have been a pedophile. As many people on this call have talked about, they've been raped, they've been molested. We don't know who George Zimmerman could have presented himself to Trayvon Martin in his mind. So therefore, he had every right to fight and try to as physically damage this man as possible. And much of what they're talking about these days is they're talking about whether or not he had a broken nose, whether or not he had scratches on the back of his head. What he needed to have was his eyes gouged out for attacking and stalking a young black child. And I don't understand why so many people are acting like this young black child had no reason to fight back a grown man carrying a firearm. I'm just really confused about that.
I never acted like he shouldn't have fought back. I definitely support him fighting back and defending himself. Because it's obvious to me from what I heard that Zimmerman was the aggressor by making the move to follow him and stalk him anyway. That right there was an act of aggression.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like in so many of the news accounts and just in the day-to-day commentary that I hear from people, like people now talk about, whether Zimmerman had a broken nose or had cuts on the back of his head, and all of that is irrelevant to me when I listen to that tape and listen to the fact that this person stalked this young child with the intention of, depriving him of his life. And I don't care what this child did to him. I don't care if Trayvon Martin, I wouldn't care if Trayvon Martin stabbed him with a big pin in his throat. That's what he was supposed to do. This man could have been a pedophile. He could have been a rapist. He could have been another Jeffrey Dahmer for all Trayvon Martin knew. He could have ended up in George Zimmerman's freezer.
When you say the media and what you hear people say, are these mostly white people and media that white people control?
Well, it's media that white people control, but sadly, it's a lot of non-white people who are now taking their cues from the white media and now passing along. It seems like the narrative is changing because they're now coming out with videos in which they're showing some sort of abrasions to George Zimmerman. So now it seems like the narrative is changing, that now I'm finding a lot more of non-white people now saying, well, he shouldn't have hit him, he shouldn't have hit his head, and all of that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me.
Right.
Because that's not what a parent... Yeah, because that's not what no parent tells... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying if someone attacks you, the attacker should have as many wounds and bruises as possible to show that the victim was defending themselves. I mean, of course, I'm if George Zimmerman had a broken nose or a busted head, he well deserved it. He earned it.
Exactly. It's like with one of the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. When he came and when the officer came to the door and so forth, he escorted the non-white male back into the apartment, and it ended up with Jeffrey Dahmer killing this person as well as the other victims. It's like they just totally expect that if you're a non-white person, that you're supposed to just defensively sit there and just die. And as Mr. Fuller said earlier on this call, you make a defensive decision that when someone is trying to deprive you of life, the first law of nature is self-preservation. You're supposed to do any and everything that is at your means to preserve your life. And I'm hearing folks acting like Trayvon Martin should have just sat down and said, yes, sir, no problem. I don't care if this person at that point would have even been showing, if it were my child, if he would have even been showing my child a badge at that point, I would still be like, how do you know that that's a real badge? Why is it that he has you cornered in the dark? What is this about? This person could be another Jeffrey Dahmer who wants to stick you in his freezer.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. Do you think that's a method, a tactic to subdue other non-white young people?
I think that what it is communicating making a mass communication to other non-white people that they're not even to defend themselves when there is an aggressor who's putting them in harm's way. That they're supposed to just be submissive and lay down and die.
Mm-hmm.
Because, first and foremost, it's like you can't wear a certain article of clothing because you look suspicious. You can't run when someone is looking at you like a stalker because you put yourself in a position in which you justifiably are being chased. You can't be talking on the phone with a female friend and telling your female friend that you feel like your life is being threatened, and she overhears some strange guy coming up to you, because you're not justified in that. And you definitely aren't justified in fighting back if some stranger approaches you while you're en route to the house that you're supposed to be at, and you fight that person back. You're not justified with it. So the message that it communicates to non-white children is, you're supposed to just lay down and die.
Lay down and die. The message to non-white parents is enroll children in self-defense classes right away.
I would think that that's what a lot of non-white parents would be doing, but unfortunately, I hear more non-white parents these days talking about ways in which their children, they're teaching them to be as submissive as possible, you know. And I'm not saying that when you're confronted by an individual who's supposedly a law enforcement official, and that individual is displaying a badge or so forth, and they're in a so-called position of authority. I'm talking about when you just see everyday rank-and-file racist man or suspected racist woman, and they confront you on the street, that you're supposed to just lay down and die.
It's one way to beat the spirit out of a child.
I think that non-white children are the most unprotected children on the planet, in all areas of people activity, as this show is talking about, in the areas of sex. Just the value that is placed on the lives of non-white children is so low that in so many different realms of activities, whether it be an after-school program, whether it's a faith-based organization, and even when it's in the family home, just non-white children, the value of their lives is just so low in the minds of so many other people.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a challenge. And then to interact with children who've been so either abused, it's that's what's happening on the other end there. These young people are being abused, neglected, and mistreated, and then they just don't know what a normal is. They don't know what being treated with respect feels like, or how to recognize it. In my experience recently.
We have about 10 minutes left in the program. If anybody has anything else they want to touch on, I guess I will ask if any of the folks on the line, if you all have, accessed anyone, if you've used any counseling and or therapy around issues of sexual trauma, if it was beneficial or any experiences, if anybody on the line has done that, and if you'd be down to share, I think that might be helpful for some folks listening in, just if the counseling or therapy, if that works.
There's online support groups that are somewhat anonymous, that are supportive, that I would recommend if you don't feel like or you can't afford to pay for professional help. I think talking about it, talk to somebody about it, no matter how long ago it happened.
For me, in terms of like therapy, I didn't have any therapy when I was a child. Waited until I was older while in a relationship and went to couples counseling, which unearthed a lot of these issues and the significance of it. Regrettably, that counselor was a white male, and I believe that he was kind of drawing some sort of sick, deviant pleasure over hearing about our sex life. So we suspended the couples counseling. Then I did individual counseling, and it was with a white female, and she had some suggestions about some resources, and it was good for me to look into the resources, books, and things of that nature. But in terms of the actual sessions with her, I didn't find a great deal of benefit. I felt disconnected because she was a white female. I didn't really feel like we, shared any commonality, and it didn't have to be that she had to be a black male for us to share that commonality. But I just felt like, it was more of a social experiment for her as opposed to her having a vested interest in my wellness. So it didn't work out for me. So most of the things that I've done therapeutically have been the result of, small groups and larger group settings, just talking to other males who've been through similar or the same sort of situation, and, a lot of self-help resources. Because there weren't, and there still aren't, a lot of resources that particularly deal with the sexual trauma that I experienced. Most of the resources that I encountered, I find, are very much focused on females who experience sexual trauma, and that is a very terrible, heinous situation. But I find myself becoming frustrated when the conversation of sexual trauma comes up, because it does seem like the conversation gets really bogged down in looking at the female perspective. And the few times that they bring up male sexual trauma, it does seem like they're talking about males experiencing sexual trauma from the result of other males. So my situation, I don't feel like it's discussed enough, And there have been a few incidents in which I've discussed it, and I've found that black females have gotten very angry and upset at me for talking about being victimized by black females. And it turned into a situation of them wanting to say more statistically how more black females are being abused by black males. And I was like, I'm not talking about statistics. I'm talking about me as an individual. I'm not a statistic. I'm a person. And so that's been my frustration.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the similarities of your victimization that you experience to some of the things that female victims, you've heard of female victims experience? Do I need to rephrase that?
No.
Do you see any similarities in your victimization?
Well, I think the number one similarity is that it's about a person that's in a position of power taking advantage of a child or a person who's confused and less informed. And that's the biggest similarity overall. I think that just because the one that abused me was a female, I don't think that made it all that significantly more different. Like, oh, well, if the person would have been a male or if I would have been a female, it's somehow made it so much different. It was abuse is abuse. It was a person that was more powerful still abusing a person that was less powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make a distinction. I don't, like it's like, for instance, if a woman is raped and she's penetrated vaginally, and then a man is raped and he's penetrated anally, does one say, oh, my rape was worse than yours because it was vaginally and yours was anally? I mean, both of them were raped. You may call one sodomy and one rape, but they both were still rape.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I find in my frustration oftentimes that I encounter females that discount the fact that males can be abused. And I've even had a few females say things like, well, some more of you do deserve to be abused, so you could know what we go through. So, yeah, it's kind of weird.
And I can't speak for all females, but I'll know that one of the things that I don't hear enough of is males expressing and articulating where it hurts or when they hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I have not had a male in my life, come and try to talk to me about it. So I've had no direct understanding or interaction, but I know that male children are actively being abused. But those adult men I've never encountered in a support group, or I've never encountered them speaking honestly about their either experience or healing process, which is where I know that women, a lot of women will talk openly and readily about their abuse experience. Has that been your experience?
Yes, I mean, there haven't been many forums or discussions that have been open to me particularly sharing, or other males that I know sharing their sort of situation. The few males that I do know who have shared with me what their situations were, most of them haven't even told the women that they're involved in relationships with what their situations were. And the hurt is such that as a result of this, it makes you feel broken. It makes you feel like, I think for me and a few other males that I know who shared it with me, it makes you become sexualized. You have sexual anger towards women. So that for many years I functioned as a womanizer. And I mean, I functioned as a womanizer because I was very angry at women. I felt like someone took advantage of me and then introduced me to sex very early, and then I had this very hypersexual childhood, so that for many years, particularly during my teen years, I was very aggressive sexually with women. And when I say aggressive, I don't mean that I became someone who then started molesting or raping women. I'm talking about I became someone who was very promiscuous and had no qualms about sleeping with this woman and then sleeping with that woman. And no qualms about not having an emotional attachment to it. And it really cost me what could have been some really significant relationships, because I had an inability to recognize how dysfunctional I was until later on in life.
Did you ever have a therapist or a support group, or how did you? What was your process, or what has been your process?
Well, my process was over the years I tried to breach the subject with a few males, and they weren't really open to it. The few times that I've breached the subject with females, a few were open to it, a few weren't. I'd say 8 out of every 10 women that I've been involved with have experienced some form of sexual trauma. So, and when I say sexual trauma, I mean everything from either being raped, molested, or abortions or miscarriages. I consider those sexual traumas as well, traumatic womb experiences. And so as a result, I just seem to be in a cycle of those really dysfunctional relationships. And it took me until my mid-20s for me to really begin recognizing that I had this dysfunctional pattern. But at that point, I had a group of male friends who were all pretty much as dysfunctional as I was. And it took until me getting to my 30s, early 30s, for me to really recognize that I really needed to do something about it. And I was in a relationship at one point, and we were like listening to this OJ record. Last night, me and my woman, we cried together or whatever. And it was like, this was the first time that I was having an open weeping session with a woman and telling her about it. And, and she was like, it's not enough for you to lay here and cry with me. You need to go to therapy. And we went to therapy, and then that was my experience. And then a little while after that, a few years after that, I saw the Antoine Fisher movie, and that movie really, had such a profound impact on me that I really started delving into going to men's groups. I wasn't with the whole church theology thing, but that was where the men groups were. I'd go to men's groups at a mosque. I'd go to wherever a men's group would be, just so that I could be around men. And just being around other men or males enabled me to be able to talk about and hear a lot of their issues and talk through it. And, from a lot of those situations, I got some resources There's something in New York called the Real Dads Network. And they have like men's groups discussions that are frequent, and different things of that nature. And I'd go to these kind of forums and just deal with it that way. But there was no formal structure for me anyway.
Did you ever have an opportunity to confront your attacker?
No, I saw her years later when we were, she was approximately about 11 or 12 years older than me. So I saw her years later when I was in my early 20s. And, it was just like I saw her from a distance. She waved hello. I kind of gave her a frown. And it was just like we just kept it moving. So there was never any real confrontation.
What do you think about having a confrontation now? Would that be helpful?
I mean, it would be helpful in the sense for me to be able to get out of my head all of the things that I wanted to say to this individual growing up. When I thought about that scene in the Antoine Fisher movie, and I keep going back to that movie because that movie was my therapy. I watched that movie so many times, it was unbelievable. It's like I memorized it. So I think that it would be good for me to be able to have that opportunity to get out of my head all those things that I would have liked to have said. That might be therapeutic for me. I don't find a need that, I want to physically do something to this person because I recognize from all the females that I've dealt with that it's highly probable that she experienced some sort of sexual trauma herself. And I don't think that that's an excuse for what she did, but I recognize that it was definitely probably a factor in what happened.
Was she a family member?
No, she wasn't. She was someone that lived upstairs in my building, and she would babysit us on occasion. Like if my mother had to go out, she would babysit us on occasion. So she was a high schooler.
Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
We are at the 3-hour mark. We will be having more of these dialogues. We should have Darkness to Light, it's an organization also listed. Sylvia Coleman, her website, blacksurvivors.org. They have a forum as well where you can, log on and comment, post, talk to some of the other people from their forum. But they also have the site Darkness to Light. They have resources for parents. They have an online course that you can take to get more information. They deal a lot with prevention, keeping any sort of child molestation from happening in the first place. And then the early stages of what to do if you have any suspicions that something could have happened to your child, what steps you can take as a parent to bring it to an immediate halt. But they should be with us on the program next Thursday, and we should have some other programs as well with folks sharing on this topic. As I said, looking to get as many folks, as many resources to non-white people as possible this month. I think it's very important, and we should try to spend a lot of time talking on this issue. I think it's rampant. As you've been hearing from listeners for the most of this month, the sexual deviance, sexual molestation, child rape, it's rampant. This is the cesspool that we are in. Sexual abuse is encouraged, fostered under the system of racism, white supremacy, always has been, and I suspect that will continue to be the case. But we will be back tomorrow, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. As I said, Professor Vernelia Randall, quote-unquote Obamacare. That's what we'll be talking about. Looking forward to having her back on the broadcast. Before we wrap things up, invest. If you think the program is constructive and recommend to other non-white folks, you can download, share, post the links on your Facebook page, or if you have your own blog, website, you can put a link there. Tweet the program to get more non-white people tuning in if you think it would benefit non-white people to hear the content of the programming. With that, I put the link in the chat room for the Law and Order episode. I know someone was requesting that. If you don't have access to the chat room, I'll post it on my Facebook page. I'll do that. That'll make it easy. But you can find it if you have any sort of, internet savvy with searching. It's not very difficult to track down. Just put Law and Order personal file and it should pop up. There are lots of links for it online, and you should be able to access the whole episode uninterrupted. I think it reveals quite a bit. Any final sentences anyone wanted to get in before we wrap things up?
No, just that I'm on the plantation suffering from John Henryism, which is why I haven't commented.
Feel ya. I feel ya. John Henryism, folks who do not know, that can be a homework assignment. For folks who don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's in the archives as well, but you can look it up online. Important concept. I suspect many black people, non-white people, are suffering from John Henryism in one way or another. Any other sentences anyone need to get in before we wrap things up? Cool. We will be back again. Commend everyone for sharing. I know this is not the most pleasant subject matter. Can be quite difficult to talk about, even to listen to, I know, for a lot of folks, but I think it is extremely important, and just thanks to everyone who shared. Really appreciate you all opening up about such a difficult topic and difficult personal experience. And I think it really helps for the folks who are listening in to hear these dialogues and to know that, it's not just them. I know it's so many people out there who have experienced some sort of sexual trauma, and I think it is really a huge benefit for them to hear constructive dialogue on this subject matter, and to know that what they have experienced can be overcome, and that they are not alone, that other people have gone through this as well. So just again, commendation to everyone for being so open, and we will have more opportunities to have these discussions as the month proceeds. And again, the website for Sylvia Coleman, blacksurvivors.org. A lot of great resources. blacksurvivors.org. Our guest for today's program, Lori Robinson. Her website is LoriRobinson.com. She has a whole chapter with prayers in the book around sexual healing. I'll read one of the prayers in the book. She didn't actually write it, but I'll share one of those to close us out. Justice, her website again, justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com. You can visit my blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. The prayer, this one is by Reverend Dr. Melinda Contreras-Byrd. It is titled Self-Talk for Thrivers. I began as a victim, but I will move to being a survivor and finally a thriver. I will survive and thrive by saying the right things to myself. I acknowledge the power of my mind to heal myself. I claim the promise that the truth will make us free. Therefore, I will speak to myself only in truth, and pledge from this day on to stop the voices of blame and shame that constantly talk inside my head. I will affirm that there is no way I could have known, unless I suspected every man of harboring wicked motives. Only psychologically unhealthy people suspect everyone of wicked motives. He was not a monster, able to be everywhere at once, all-powerful and omnipresent to keep me inside, in fear, in pain, and surrendered. Only God is all-powerful and omnipresent. We cannot know why God allows such horror to occur, but we can affirm what we do know with certainty about God. We can affirm that God is with us in our suffering. No one deserves to be abused. I will never say that I caused this in any way. No one is within his rights to behave this way toward another human being. This did not happen because I was too free, too open, too sexy, or too trusting. This happened because he was lacking in some essential human part. I refuse to let this sick individual change my whole life. I refuse to become fearful, untrusting, depressed, and silenced. I will develop a plan for my own healing. I will include a support circle in my healing process. I will tell my pain and shout my rage until it has no more power to silence or disable me. In the future, I will sleep peacefully again. In the future, I will trust again. In the future, I will not dread the night or being alone or the footsteps of men. In the future, I will not need medication or ongoing therapy. In the future, my life will not be focused around this terrible event. In the future, I will be healed. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thank you everyone for listening in.